The oppressive stillness of the Underworld, a realm where time itself congealed like the stagnant waters of the Cocytus, pressed down upon Cerberus, an eternal weight as ancient as the first wail of a forsaken soul. The air, thick with the sulphurous exhalations of forgotten pyres and the cloying sweetness of withered asphodel, hung heavy, a tangible shroud upon his many senses. Here, where the mournful echoes of the dead wove themselves into the very fabric of the abyss, Cerberus maintained his timeless, unwavering vigil. His three heads, each a distinct sentience, yet inextricably woven into the monstrous tapestry of his being, were a symphony of perpetual vigilance. The left head, its nostrils flaring like the bellows of a primeval forge, sifted the air for the telltale tang of mortality, the scent of the living who dared trespass upon forbidden shores. The right head, its ears keener than the whispering winds that stirred the Lethian depths, strained to catch the faintest rustle of a shade seeking escape. The central head, its eyes like twin embers buried in the husk of a dying world, cast an unblinking gaze upon the abyss, watching, waiting, ensuring that none disturbed the sacred decree of death. The serpents coiled about his spine and throat, each scale an obsidian mirror reflecting the dim, ethereal glow of the underworld, seethed and hissed, a chorus of warning, a wreath of venomous dread. They were no mere adornments, they were the extensions of his will, living harbingers of death's finality. Each flickering tongue tasted the sorrow in the air, each strike an unerring prophecy of agony eternal. Cerberus was not merely a guardian, he was the very breath of the underworld, an embodiment of its immutable laws. He felt the slow, mournful pulse of the Styx, the sorrowful weeping of its current. He knew the language of the dead, the silent pleas of the lost, the anguished dirge of those condemned to wander the ashen plains for all time. He had borne witness to the procession of countless souls, an unceasing tide of woe that streamed through the gates like the flood of an endless lament. He had seen kings and beggars reduced to the same hushed wraiths, their former glories and shames stripped from them by the hands of oblivion. He had seen heroes whose battle-worn visages bore the scars of forgotten wars, their names whispered in broken hymns by those still clinging to the world above. He had seen the cowards, their eyes wild with the terror of finality, begging for a mercy that had no place in the underworld's decree. Time was meaningless here. Empires had risen and fallen, only to fade into the endless gray, the echo of their passing a mere ripple upon the Lethe's quietude. Through it all, Cerberus remained, his existence woven into the fabric of eternity, a sentinel at the threshold of the end. Then, like a discordant note in the dirge of the abyss, a tremor disturbed the stagnant air. It was a pulse, a shudder through the firmament of shadow, a flicker of something alien. Life. Heracles. A mortal bearing the weight of divine blood and an impossible task had descended into the land of sorrow, a living flame defying the frost of death's domain. His footsteps, though muted upon the ashen earth, struck with the force of defiance, a heartbeat of defiant rhythm against the hollow silence. Cerberus felt his presence before he saw him, the scent of mortal sweat mingling with the bitter perfume of decay, the unrelenting aura of indomitable will that burned around the hero like a beacon in the dark. Heracles had come to steal a piece of death itself. It was not merely an intrusion. It was an affront. It was war. A snarl, deep as the rumbling bowels of the earth, tore through the stillness as Cerberus surged forward, a storm of fangs and fury, a whirlwind of snapping jaws and slashing claws. The very ground trembled beneath the thunder of his charge. His serpentine tail, a living scourge of obsidian scales, lashed through the air, striking out like a whip of venomous wrath. Shadows stretched and recoiled at his passing, as if the very fabric of the underworld sought to pull him back, to keep its guardian bound to its eternal duty. But Heracles did not waver. He was a mountain against the storm, a force of nature himself, a man who had defied the wrath of gods and the fury of monsters. His muscles forged in the trials of labor and the burden of his penance, tensed with raw power as he braced for the onslaught. As Cerberus lunged, 3 sets of jaws gaping wide to consume him, the hero did not retreat. He met the beast's fury head-on. The clash was cataclysmic, the collision of titanic forces. The underworld itself seemed to recoil, the specters of the dead drawn forth by the violence, their hollow eyes watching in silent awe. Heracles' hands, unyielding as celestial iron, found purchase in the thick, matted fur of the monstrous hound, his grip like the chains of the cosmos itself. Cerberus thrashed, his jaws snapping, his serpents striking, but Heracles endured. Fangs rent flesh, venom seared his skin, but the hero's will was iron, his strength unrelenting. With a roar that echoed across the forgotten expanse, Heracles wrenched Cerberus to the ground, the weight of his divine lineage pressing down upon the guardian like the vault of the heavens itself. The great hound's snarls faltered, his struggle weakened until, at last, his mighty frame yielded. His growls faded into a low, resentful whimper, the storm of his fury quelled by the sheer force of the hero's might. And then the unthinkable, the guardian of the underworld, the beast that none could pass, was dragged from his eternal realm up through the winding paths of the dead into the blinding brilliance of the mortal sun. The world recoiled at his presence. The sky itself seemed to shudder at the sight of him, a being of darkness wrenched into the realm of light. Mortals, their fragile forms trembling, beheld the 3-headed beast with eyes wide in terror, whispering prayers to gods who would not answer. Cerberus, his infernal eyes blinking against the unfamiliar radiance, let loose a howl that sent tremors through the earth, a cry of rage, of defiance, of longing for the abyss from which he had been torn. But Heracles was no thief of death. His task was not destruction, but proof, a testament to the might of a mortal who bore the blood of Olympus. And so the moment of triumph passed, the deed completed, the impossible made real. With measured steps, Heracles returned Cerberus to his rightful place, back to the yawning gates of the underworld. There, beneath the oppressive gloom, amidst the wailing of the shades and the silent whispers of time forgotten, the guardian resumed his post, his head lifted, his gaze once more cast upon the endless tide of the dead, his duty unbroken. Yet something lingered, a memory, a whisper of defiance, the echo of a mortal who had wrestled with death itself and emerged victorious. It was but a fleeting ripple upon the vast river of eternity, but Cerberus, timeless, unyielding, would remember. And so, the underworld settled once more into its ceaseless stillness, its guardian watchful, its laws unbroken. But somewhere in the hushed tones of mortal tongues, in the fire-lit halls of storytellers, the tale of the beast and the hero was woven into the fabric of legend, a testament to a time when even death itself had been challenged, and for but a moment, forced to bow before the strength of the living.